Stephen Boss, also known as Twitch, passed away in 2022. Recently, his mother and brother have spoken out for the first time since his passing. Their decision to speak is prompted not by choice, but because Stephen's widow, Allison Hollker, has released a book this week. In her book, she levels various serious allegations against Stephen. Having read and skimmed through most of the book, I found many clear fabrications, easily debunked falsehoods, deceptions, and revisions of history. If one is familiar with Stephen, it is quite apparent that much of what she claims is false. If you are not so familiar with his life and approach the book seeking solace from someone's grief, you might be led astray. Fans of Allison may also be deceived into believing her story. Perhaps the most disturbing part of the book is her discussion about private journals and notes that Stephen left behind. She claims these writings reveal a darker side of him. One wouldn't even know about such claims without reading the book. In January, when these accusations were first reported, it seemed Allison's allegations against Stephen only reached as far as his alleged substance use and drinking. These allegations go far beyond that and detail actions that no man should be accused of without evidence. Allison does not share the specific pages from Stephen's journals she believes contain this disgusting information. Instead, she points to them, interpreting the information based on her own knowledge. Imagine being Stephen's family, finding this painful book in the People magazine cover story. As his mother-in-law or brother-in-law, Allison never told you about the book. You just sit there, waiting for the worst to come from those lies she would be telling everyone. For Connie Boss Alexander and Dre Rose, that's how it happened. They recently joined Gayle King on CBS Mornings to share their side of the story. Connie was hoping to look through the journals that would enable her to comprehend exactly what her son was going through. Allison Hollker narrates in her autobiography Stephen's suicidal act as if it was deliberate and shame-bringing, and failed to depict this as an episode of mental disease. Allison goes on to explain a family controversy over arranging his funeral over Stephen's preference to have his coffin open that Allison opposed. Hollker writes, "Did she really believe that Stephen would want his loved one's last image of him to reflect the trauma of the most shameful act of his life?" This perspective has been deeply hurtful to Stephen's family, who feel that she lacks empathy for his struggles. The family is also concerned about the portrayal of Stephen's private journals in the memoir. Hollker claims to have discovered these writings after his death, alleging they contain disturbing content. However, she does not provide specific excerpts, leaving her interpretations unverified. This has led to further distress among Stephen's loved ones, who question the authenticity of her claims and the motives behind sharing such personal details publicly. In response to the backlash, Hollker has stated that her intention in writing the book was to share her own story and aspects of her life with Stephen to help others. She expressed hope that by sharing, she might help others recognize warning signs she missed. This situation has sparked a broader conversation about the ethics of sharing personal narratives, especially when they involve sensitive topics like mental health and suicide. It raises questions about the balance between personal storytelling and respect for the deceased and their families. In her memoir, Allison Hollker reflects on her interactions with Stephen Twitch, Boss's family, following his death. She describes a conflict with his mother over funeral arrangements, expressing her belief that an open casket would force loved ones to confront the trauma of the most shameful act of his life. Hollker interprets his mother's insistence on this as misdirected anger towards her, stating, "I understood the subtext. She was mad at me because she couldn't be angry at Stephen." This perspective suggests that Hollker views his death as a deliberate and selfish choice, rather than a consequence of mental illness. Hollker's background in the Latter-day Saints, LDS, church may influence her views on suicide. Historically, some interpretations within the LDS community have equated suicide with serious sin. However, contemporary LDS teachings emphasize compassion and understanding, acknowledging that mental health struggles can diminish personal accountability. Elder M. Russell Ballard has stated, "Only the Lord knows all the details, and He it is who will judge our actions here on earth." Mental health professionals and advocacy groups assert that suicide is often the result of severe mental health conditions, such as depression, which can impair judgment and lead individuals to believe that ending their life is the only way to alleviate their suffering. It's crucial to approach discussions about suicide with empathy and an understanding of its complex, multifaceted nature. Hollker's portrayal of Boss's death has been met with criticism from his family, who feel that her narrative lacks empathy for his mental health struggles and misrepresents the nature of his death. This has led to a broader conversation about the importance of compassionate discourse surrounding mental health and suicide. In her memoir, Allison Hollker portrays Stephen Twitch, Boss, as a chronic daily user of marijuana. She claims that she advised authorities against conducting an autopsy to prevent TMZ from reporting the presence of drugs in his system. However, an autopsy was performed, and the results, released on May 24, 2023, confirmed that Stephen had no drugs or alcohol in his system at the time of his death. Hollker also alleges that Stephen left her in significant debt, with no life insurance or financial support, forcing her to manage the bills on her own. These claims have been met with skepticism, as they contrast with the public perception of Stephen's financial situation and the support systems typically in place for families in such circumstances. Throughout the book, Hollker's palpable anger towards Stephen is evident, often focusing on financial matters. She expresses frustration over lost business opportunities and brand partnerships that were canceled following his death. This perspective has led to criticism from those who feel she is prioritizing monetary concerns over a compassionate understanding of Stephen's mental health struggles. It's important to approach such narratives critically, recognizing the complexity of personal relationships and the potential for differing perspectives. While Hollker's account provides insight into her experiences, it's essential to consider multiple viewpoints to gain a comprehensive understanding of the situation. In her memoir, Allison Hollker portrays Stephen Twitch Boss as a chronic daily marijuana user and claims she advised authorities against conducting an autopsy to prevent TMZ from reporting the presence of drugs in his system. However, an autopsy was performed, and the results, released on May 24, 2023, confirmed that Stephen had no drugs or alcohol in his system at the time of his death. Hollker also alleges that Stephen left her in significant debt, with no life insurance or financial support, forcing her to manage the bills on her own. These claims have been met with skepticism, as they contrast with the public perception of Stephen's financial situation and the support systems typically in place for families in such circumstances. Throughout the book, Hollker shows palpable anger at Stephen, often focused on financial matters. She gets frustrated over lost business opportunities and brand partnerships canceled due to his death. This perspective has drawn criticism from people who feel that she is concerned about money rather than having more compassion for what Stephen was going through in terms of mental health. It's important to approach such narratives critically, recognizing the complexity of personal relationships and the potential for differing perspectives. While Hollker's account provides insight into her experiences, it's essential to consider multiple viewpoints to gain a comprehensive understanding of the situation. In her memoir, Allison Hollker reflects on discovering entries in Stephen Twitch, Boss's journals that allude to traumatic experiences from his childhood. She interprets these entries as possible indications of abuse he endured. Hollker writes that these revelations led her to question whether becoming a biological father might have resurfaced these buried memories for Stephen. She wonders if he feared he was destined to repeat the cycle of abuse with his own son, Maddox. Critics argue that Hollker's immediate association between Stephen's past trauma and a potential for harmful behavior towards children is unfounded and stigmatizing. They contend that such assumptions perpetuate harmful stereotypes about survivors of abuse, suggesting that they are likely to become perpetrators themselves, a notion that is not supported by evidence. Furthermore, Hollker recounts an instance where a mutual friend shared their own experiences of childhood abuse. She notes that Stephen was sympathetic and supportive during this conversation, but did not disclose his own similar experiences. Hollker expresses frustration that Stephen did not share his personal history in that moment. Critics find this perspective troubling, as it appears to place an expectation on survivors to disclose their trauma, regardless of their readiness or comfort level. They argue that such expectations can be harmful, failing to respect individual boundaries and the deeply personal nature of trauma disclosure. These aspects of Hollker's memoir have opened a wider debate about the need to address narratives of abuse and trauma with sensitivity and respect. Advocates point out that there is a need to prevent stigmatizing the activities and maintain respect for individual choice over when, how, and to whom disclose personal experiences. In her memoir, Allison Hollker interprets Stephen Twitch Boss's journal entries as suggesting he may have ended his life to prevent himself from committing a more grievous act. She implies that his childhood trauma led him to fear he might harm others, a perspective that has been widely criticized. Critics argue that Hollker's interpretation perpetuates a harmful stigma, the unfounded belief that survivors of childhood sexual abuse are likely to become perpetrators themselves. Research indicates that the majority of abuse survivors do not go on to commit such acts. Instead, they often grapple with challenges like low self-esteem, substance abuse, depression, and an increased risk of revictimization. Hollker's narrative has been further questioned due to inconsistencies in her account. She maintained that no autopsy was conducted on Stephen, though official reports do confirm an autopsy was conducted where no substances were found in his system at the time of death. Moreover, Hollker suggested that Stephen abandoned her without any life insurance. However, she bought a $5 million house in cash 3 months after Stephen's death. It is surmised to be a payment from the life insurance Stephen was supposed to have. These discrepancies have led many to question the credibility of Hollker's assertions and to view her portrayal of Stephen as potentially damaging to his legacy. It's essential to approach such sensitive topics with care, ensuring that narratives do not perpetuate harmful stereotypes or unjustly tarnish an individual's memory. Welcome back to my channel. Today is Friday, February 7th, 2025. Stephen Twitch, Boss's mother, Connie Boss Alexander, and his brother, Dre Rose, have spoken out for the first time since his passing in 2022. Their decision to speak comes in response to a memoir released this week by Stephen's widow, Allison Hollker. In her book, Hollker levels numerous serious allegations against Stephen. Having read through much of it, I found many fabrications, easily disproven falsehoods, and distortions of history. For those familiar with Stephen, it's clear that many of her claims are false. Readers seeking comfort from someone else's grief journey or fans of Allison might be led astray by her story. One of the most disturbing aspects of the memoir is her discussion of private journals and notes Stephen allegedly left behind. She claims these writings reveal a darker side of him. Without reading the book, one might not grasp the severity of her accusations. Initially, in January, it was believed that her allegations pertained to substance use and excessive drinking. However, her claims go far beyond that, accusing him of actions no man should be accused of, especially without evidence. She doesn't provide the specific pages where he supposedly wrote these things. She merely alludes to them, interpreting them based on her perspective. Imagine being Stephen's family and discovering Allison's memoir through a People magazine cover story. Connie and Dre were not informed by Allison about the book's release. They had to brace themselves for its contents, uncertain of the falsehoods she might present. They finally had the opportunity to share their side of the story in an interview with Gayle King on CBS Mornings. Connie expressed a desire to see the journals to better understand Stephen's thoughts and feelings. It's unlikely the family wishes for these journals to be made public. Allison claims to have found these journals after Stephen's passing, alleging they contain horrific details. Before delving into the journals, it's important to note that she doesn't view his actions as stemming from illness. She lacks empathy for the fact that he was ill, referring to his death as the most shameful act of his life and questioning why he should be celebrated. She recounts disagreements with Stephen's family over funeral arrangements, criticizing their desire for an open casket, which she opposed. Throughout the book, she repeatedly shames him for not seeking help, yet simultaneously makes it clear that she didn't understand his struggles and may not have been a receptive confidant. Her palpable anger seems directed towards financial matters, expressing frustration over lost business opportunities and brand cancellations. She falsely claims that no autopsy was performed and that Stephen was addicted to various substances. In reality, an autopsy was conducted, and results released on May 24, 2023, showed no substances in his system. Despite this, she portrays him as a chronic user of marijuana, a claim contradicted by the autopsy findings. She also misleads readers by stating that Stephen left her in significant debt without insurance. However, she was the beneficiary of a life insurance policy, which she used to purchase a $5 million home in cash months after his passing. The book contains numerous other falsehoods, such as claiming they didn't decorate the Christmas tree, despite evidence to the contrary. In the memoir, she insinuates that Stephen's journals contain references to childhood abuse by an adult male. She suggests that becoming a biological father might have triggered these buried memories and questions whether he feared becoming a perpetrator himself. These are her interpretations, not supported by concrete evidence. The family has not heard these allegations before, and many do not believe them to be true. Allison's immediate assumption that Stephen's trauma could lead him to harm others reflects a harmful stigma. Studies show that victims of childhood abuse are more likely to struggle with self-esteem issues, substance abuse, and depression, rather than becoming perpetrators. Her portrayal perpetuates damaging misconceptions. She further accuses him of being gay and attributes his actions to various substances, casting numerous unfounded allegations to tarnish his character. Her anger towards him is evident, and instead of seeking therapy, she has chosen to write this damaging book. I commend Stephen's family for speaking out and sharing their experiences. No family should have to learn such distressing information through a memoir. Anyone reading this book should be aware that it serves Allison's interests and may not present an accurate portrayal of Stephen. The full interview with Connie and Dre will air on CBS Mornings on Tuesday, February 11th, where they will discuss the importance of honoring Stephen's legacy and address the falsehoods presented in Allison's memoir. Stephen's family wants to love and show kindness to him because they realize he did what he could in the pain that overshadowed his mind. Allison's memoir reveals an apparent irritation and anger towards him, and can't show mercy upon his pain that has led to a gap between her and the family. Her entire book reads more like a story of trying to justify her emotions and actions, especially considering the fact that Stephen's death was officially ruled a suicide, while the tone and content of the memoir raise a lot of questions for some readers. I encourage you to share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this discussion insightful, please give the video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell to stay updated on future content. Thank you for watching.